Hello and welcome back to True Crime Guys podcast. I'm your host Michael and Andy's here.
I guess I am.
Oh, you're here, buddy.
Have you ever let me not be here? Jeez.
No, that is not allowed actually.
It's in the contract, I think.
It is in every bit of the contract. But Andy, thanks for coming back this week, you know.
Again.
I really appreciate it. We're talking another crazy drama-filled case this week, honestly.
This is a love triangle right here.
It is. Not a hate triangle like Dear Neighbor episode.
No,
that was, I wouldn't call it a hate triangle, but you know what I'm saying. Feuding couples last week, right, with Dear Couple. Dear Neighbor.
Dear Neighbor.
Dear Neighbor. I just came up with that right on the spot.
Right? Good job.
Every now and then, it just comes to me.
Trademark.
It just comes to me. But this week, our case is pretty insane, and I actually heard about it in a funny way. But first, I must remind you guys that you can hear these episodes early and ad-free on Patreon. Right, Andy? I mean, we got to tell them that.
At patreon.com/truecrimeguys.
Exactly. It just feels rude not to let you know.
Right?
But if paying for your podcast is not your style, no big deal. You can check out our other free shows like Strange and Unexplained and Cryptic Soup, wherever you listen to podcasts. Cryptic Soup is new to TCG Network with host Athena and Kylie, and they release new episodes every Wednesday. And make sure you give them a follow on Instagram as well at Cryptic Soup Pod so you know when new episodes are dropping. Speaking of new episodes dropping, we got new YouTube episodes dropping.
We do.
Andy? We do. So make sure you subscribe there at the True Crime Guys YouTube channel and follow us on social media at True Crime Guys for daily true crime reels and all kinds of shenanigans.
You'll see some more about that Hollowell incident. That was a crazy little mass hysteria we talked about on
Strange
Strange Unexplained.
I had never heard about the Hollowell incident. That was insane. A lot like the case this week. I was actually doing some repairs at my grandmother's house, and she had the news on while I was in there working. Very loud, might I add. My grandmother has hearing issues and hates hearing aids. So I didn't even, listening to music's totally out of the question. I can't hear it over the freaking 70-inch TV in the living room.
Yeah, right? Why get a hearing aid when you can get a Bose subwoofer?
Seriously, right? She's sitting like 5 feet away from it. Yeah. So I'm working in the other room, and I can't help but hear all these news stories all day, as well as The Price is Right and Judge Judy, of course.
That's always fun.
Judge Judy is kind of comical. I got to be fair. But this news story hit right around primetime news, right? Because one of the subjects of today, she's in the news more recently for fraud, okay? Not that exciting. We'll get to that at the end of the episode. But anyways, I overheard this news broadcast, and it went back and it said that this woman was involved in a car accident, okay, with her husband's mistress and her husband, and she killed her own husband.
Yeah.
Okay, so it basically kind of sold the story as she was in pursuit of this mistress on the highway and accidentally kills her own husband. I was like, whoa, This is crazy. And then you listen a little bit more, and they say she left the scene and come back and all this, and it is incredibly interesting. But there is so much more to the case. There is so much more, and there is two very different sides to this story. Because only two people in this love triangle are still alive. Let me give you a little summary before we hit that intro, Andy. Trucking tycoon Bill Hall Jr., he was a hit with the ladies, okay? Even at just 16, when he won the heart of a local girl, Frances. 31 years later, Bill was still winning hearts, even though he was still with Frances. This time, it was of the so-called exotic dancer, Bonnie Contreras. The two women became locked in a bitter fight for Bill's affections. One decided to play dirty, honestly. They both did. But when he and his wife and his mistress met in a high-speed chase on Route 1604, tragedy was bound to happen. Now, for a long time, it was Bill, Frances, and Bonnie too. But now, as I said before, only two of them are alive to tell the story. So today, we're going to kind of break down Bonnie's story, Frances' story, and maybe a little bit of the truth in there.
Yeah, the official story.
Yeah, exactly. So roll that intro, Andy.
Okay.
Did you ever ask Bill if he was married?
I did.
When?
I did. It was at Scoozy's. What's it at Scoozy's?
The Italian restaurant on 1604?
Yep, he would always take me there. I was at Squeezy's. I remember we had ordered our food. And I finally asked him. And I said, I don't want to come off strong or, bitchy or I'm like in your business or anything. I said, but are you married? I said, because I don't go out with married men.
How many months into this is that?
I want to say like about a month.
So
But within that month span, we had spent a lot of time together by the time I asked him, but it was like about a month.
When you asked him point blank if he was married at Scoozy's, what did he say?
He goes, yes, I'm married, I'm going through a divorce and I'm separated.
And what'd you do?
I was like, oh. I just said, oh, okay. I didn't want to get into his business. I didn't want to keep asking him more questions because to me, that was none of my business. And how I had never seen a ring on his finger, I had never even seen ways of where he would pull off a ring or he had, a tan. I didn't question, I just said, oh.
But he did tell you, I'm married.
Yep, he said, I'm married, I'm separated, going through a divorce.
Did you get up at
And
that
even
point?
says that, no, I continued to have lunch with him. I finished my lunch.
When did you find out he'd lied to you about that?
Lied to me about what?
Going through a divorce.
He never lied to me. He specifically told me that he was separated and going through a divorce.
Did you do any looking into it?
No, it was none of my business.
I mean, did you Google it, look on public records?
No, it was none of my business. I felt like it was none of my business.
All right, so this story begins in 1979 on the west side of San Antonio, Texas, in a neighborhood where Bill and Frances both lived. They were high school sweethearts. She was working at a movie theater when they first started dating. Bill Hall Jr. was a hit with the ladies, and Bill Hall and Frances were very different. So Bill is kind of like this budding cowboy, kind of bigger than life personality type. He's determined and he's a risk taker, right? Mm-hmm. And by 1981, Bill can't hold back anymore and he proposes to Frances.
Yeah, you got to remember that 'cause she even talks about how she was like the good girl and Bill was this very outlandish, very eccentric person who had everyone's attention.
She said he was very respectful.
He was,
but he was just, a larger than life character.
Yeah, she said he proposed to her at her curfew at her front door or something like that because she had to be home by 10 o'clock.
Yep.
It's like, well, I just can't wait anymore. It's 10 o'clock. I'm just going to go ahead and ask you to marry me instead.
Exactly. And that was in 1981. And it wasn't too long. Kids came along soon after. First was Bill's pride and joy, Nikki, on April 1st, 1983. And then Justin was born June 7th, 1987. Bill and Frances were determined to give their children the best life they could. Frances was working odd jobs in the beginning while Bill gets a job at his aunt's trucking company. But it's just not enough for Bill. He wants his own company. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't take long because in the early 1980s, the couple gets their first truck. And not long after, they hire 6 employees and they start Bill Hall Jr.'s Trucking. And by 1989, not even 10 years later, they have become the largest trucking company in the entire state of Texas.
That's a big deal for a small-time trucking company, even at that time.
Yeah.
To take over a state like Texas.
Absolutely. Now, Bill Hall Jr.'s Trucking today is worth $12 million. Within just a few years, Bill and Frances, still in their 20s, have become pillars in their local community. But fortune came with the realization that Bill and Frances didn't exactly have the same ideas for their life moving forward. Like once Bill's business took off and, he had a lot of play money, he spent a lot of that play money. He traveled to Vegas. He showered friends with gifts. All kinds of stuff. Meanwhile, Frances is at home making tortillas and playing bingo with his mom.
Yeah, Bill, he very quickly just was like, oh, I've got so much money. I can now be even more of that life of the party. I can be that person who everyone is looking to, looking at, but everyone's looking up to and at and for, and I'll cover the dinner. I'll cover the drinks,
Oh, yeah.
He's living high at this point, too.
Absolutely. And when the Hall's 2 children grew up and finally moved out, Bill had even more free time to indulge in his hobbies, like motorcycles. Francis bought him a Harley Davidson V-Rod for his 40th birthday.
And that motorcycle he was on at the time of the accident, that thing is
That's
unique.
badass.
It is a bright motorcycle.
It is. But Bill also had another passion, Andy, and it's women's.
The ladies.
Oh, yep, it's the women's. He started going out more, hitting bars, buying drinks, having affairs. But he was a businessman, Andy. You know, he was networking.
Right.
Yeah, it's just networking. Except for at one point, Bill networked with his cousin's wife and got her pregnant.
Oh, that's really getting your networking in.
That's
Sometimes you gotta know when you gotta pull out of that networking event.
Sometimes you do. Yeah, sometimes. Friends of the family say that despite these one-night stands, Francis and Bill's marriage was by now 3 decades old, stayed strong throughout all of this, okay? But you got to remember these infidelities and how obvious it was to the family, okay? Because I think that's important. That's important later. Now, everything changed for Bill and Francis in the autumn of 2010 when Bonnie Contreras entered their life. Bonnie and Bill met at a spinach festival in Bonnie's hometown. She's from Crystal City, which is a farming community 2 hours southwest of San Antonio. She was working at the spinach festival with her aunt.
That just sounds so Midwestern. The spinach festival.
It's southern. It's San Antonio.
I know, but it sounds so Midwestern though.
It's more like southwestern, really.
I guess just
San
the
Antonio is
spinach
more
festival.
Southwest style. You know what I'm saying?
I get it. Just to have any kind of festival that's just centered around like a leafy green.
You're just not into it, are you, Andy?
It's just like you could have had
Here's
the
a-
pumpkin festival or the squash fest. No, you're gonna have the spinach. Okay, it's fine.
Boy. Here's a quote from Bonnie about how her and Bill met, okay? She says, he was passing by with a group of friends. They kind of just backtracked themselves back to the booth, and Bill and I started talking. And I kind of just ignored everybody else, and we kind of hit it off right away. I came home, and a week later, I found out that he was looking for me. So, when Bill and Bonnie meet up finally, it ends up being a month later, he tells Bonnie that he is married, but he's going through a divorce. So he's separated, okay? And this is where there are two different versions of the story. For Bonnie, that chance meeting with Bill was the beginning of the rest of her life, but Frances apparently had no idea. Here's a quote from Frances. She says, "It's so weird because people have said, well, she put up with his ways and she knew about it. No, I didn't. No. Not once did I know that Bill had been messing around behind my back or anything like that. I made the choice and I said to myself, I'm going to forgive him because it's been a hell of a ride and I'm not ready to leave this man or anything. I'm going to save my marriage." End quote. Okay, so she claims here at this point she has no idea that Bill has ever messed around behind her back.
Yeah, this is where
What
it
about the
becomes,
pregnant cousin's wife?
Yeah, what about that? What about
I'm sorry,
the fact
the cousin's
that
pregnant wife.
Yeah.
There we go.
But yeah, even the fact, and this is where the stories start becoming a little confusing too, because when you hear Bonnie start talking about how their relationship starts,
Yeah.
she's talking about how, oh, well, Bill's at my house all the time. He's over with
Oh,
me
yeah,
24/7. He's here at 6 a.m. and not leaving until 9 and 10. And
Yep.
it's like, okay, so there's you have no idea that your husband's doing any of these. Somebody's lying here.
Exactly.
You got no idea, or Bill's actually not doing that much with this other lady.
Yeah, or he can teleport between your houses because this is bullshit.
Or there's two Bills. I don't
There's two Bills. But according to Bonnie, Bill had decided to stick with her. She said, I wasn't trying to hurt anybody. It was a decision that he made, and I was respecting it. And I guess the decision he made wasn't what other people wanted, and that's where things got bad. Now, allegedly, those closest to Bill knew that there was no way he was ever going to leave Frances, especially for Bonnie. But that wasn't what Bill was telling Bonnie. She said, Bill never talked bad about his wife. He said, I'm always going to love her. She's the mother of my kids. She gave me 32 years of her life. I'm always going to respect her for that. He goes, but I'm just not in love with her anymore, end quote. For almost 3 years, Bill led this double life.
Yeah, that's where it's become so sketchy right there.
Him
When
and
it's
Bonnie were
3
getting
years,
close, man. 3 years.
and when she says that, because she says, like I was mentioning, that he's with her like 24/7.
Yes,
but yet
we're about to
Francis
get to
is
that.
saying
Yep.
that she doesn't know that he's having this double life, and it's
Exactly.
like either one of these women is not telling the truth. Right? At this point in the story, somebody's not telling.
Exactly. I got some quotes that will give you a little more insight into that. Now, this span that we're talking about, this 3 years, is between 2010 and 2013. Frances says, again, that she had no idea that Bill was seeing anybody. Here's a quote from Frances. She said, "I would have never in a million years guessed that my husband had been living a double life. Never. We were so in sync. I mean, it's almost like, man, the last year of his life, we were boom, boom, together. We were together every day," end quote. Right? And then here's your argument from Bonnie. Bonnie, she says, every day he would come to my house at anywhere from 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. We'd spend all day together, lunch, breakfast, dinner. And over at Bonnie's, she has 2 cars that he bought her. He's paying for her rent. He tells her she doesn't have to work. She's not working. He pays for breast enhancements. And like I said, this goes on for 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So how is he doing all this? Or maybe he's just buying all this shit for Bonnie and he's really not spending time with her.
That's what I believe it might be, because at the same time, if she also, she says that she believed that he was going through a divorce, that he was getting separated, and that, he was choosing to be with her. If he's choosing to be with you and he's getting separated and he's going through a divorce, why is he never staying at your house? Why are you never staying at his house? Why is
Yeah.
it 3 years for 2 adults to go on this like relationship of, oh, well, he comes over in the morning and then he leaves in the afternoon, and then he goes back to his house with his wife.
Right.
So it's 3 years of either he's not spending that much time with Bonnie and he's just buying her a bunch of shit to go fuck her every once in a while.
Yeah. That's what I
yeah.
think's happening at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm leaning to as well,
Yeah.
because there's no way that he's spending 24/7 with Bonnie and 24/7 with
There's
Francis.
no way. No, absolutely not. Lee Cutter is Francis's attorney, and she called Bonnie an evil gold digger and an incredibly manipulative woman. But surprisingly, that's really not the worst thing said about Bonnie. She said, "I've gotten more than 100,000 messages. I've gotten bad ones and all the way to good ones. To God bless you, to go kill yourself. You deserve to die."
Well, yeah, that's just Twitter. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's
big deal. Everybody gets those.
Yeah.
That's just the internet.
Yeah.
Bonnie Contreras is no stranger to being called a gold digger, but she insists that what she and Bill had was real. And see, that's why she needs you to believe that he's over there all the time. That's what makes me believe it less.
Yeah.
See what I mean? And especially now that Bill's gone, she needs to save face in this tragedy. Right. Now, one version of the whole story was that in September of 2013, Bill Jr. had started to lose interest in Bonnie. Bill maybe starts to get tired of the relationship, so he starts becoming a little more distant. Bonnie's wondering what's going on, right? So she starts texting him. He's not responding, so she just starts flooding his phone with text. Finally, she's threatening him. She's saying, "You respond to me or I'll tell Francis everything." She just keeps sending him stuff. So finally, he says, "Go ahead, tell Francis. Fuck it." And apparently, after 32 years of marriage, for the first time, Frances was about to find out about her husband's double life. And this was in mid-September 2013 that Bonnie Contreras let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. Here's a quote go ahead. What were you going to say?
This just kind of lends more fuel to the fire of like, well, were you guys actually meant to be together? Was he leaving his wife for you? Because if you're threatening to tell his wife everything, that shouldn't mean anything. If they're getting divorced and they're getting separated, it shouldn't matter what you tell his wife that he's spending time with you. Because,
exactly.
Yeah.
So that relationship is still, they still want it.
Yeah, you know that you're the other woman. You know that he's having an affair.
It's like,
and
why
you
would
know
he
that he's
care
not going to leave his wife?
If he had no feelings for his wife and wanted to be out of a relationship with her, why would he care?
Yeah.
Other than the fact that they're business partners.
I mean, yeah, but
That
still,
is crucial in this case, Andy. We can't forget that.
There's a lot of money.
Nobody mentions that shit in this coverage, but they are business partners.
they own that business together.
They do.
And that's a lot. Like, what was it, $12 million at this point, what it was
Yes.
worth?
Yes, sir.
So, yeah, that's a lot of money on the line. But again, if he's not leaving his wife for 3 years and now you're threatening to tell her everything, you've just proven to me that you knew that he was not leaving his wife and that you guys were not this real couple.
Excellent point. Yeah. So Bonnie calls Frances and she goes, "You don't know who I am, but I need to talk to you about your husband. I've been having an affair with Bill and we need to talk about this because it needs to stop. We need to get this out in the open." And then Bonnie apparently starts sending her pictures for proof. As if she needed some proof, she started sending Frances pictures of them having sex or nude pictures of them together. All kinds of shit like that of her and Bill.
Oh, she said it was pictures
And-
of her that Bill took and videos of them
Yes, she
together.
did end up sending 3 videos from all different positions, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. All types of networking going on, Andy.
So much
Let me tell you,
networking here.
So much networking. Frances, after receiving these images, decided to confront Bill. Here's a quote from her about the situation. She says, "We get inside his Range Rover and he's driving. I get in on the passenger side. And as soon as he puts it in drive, I say, 'What's going on?' And his eyes, the tears start coming out. I'm looking at him like, oh God. I grabbed his phone. I threw it at him in the car. I hit him in the head. And then that's when I asked him how long this has been going on. And he wouldn't tell me. And he finally said, 'Almost 3 years. I was devastated,'" end quote. So his secret was finally exposed. And Bill, he was torn, honestly. Seriously, he hasn't made a decision here. And I think at this point, he goes back to Bonnie. I don't know why. You would think he would want to work this out at this point, but maybe Frances just needed time. But why would you go back to Bonnie, right?
I feel like at this point, he's not so much
He's
thinking that his
thinking, "I'm
marriage is
fucked."
over.
Yeah.
I think at this point, Bill is trying to just calm everything down. Like, my wife is so mad at me. My girlfriend is so mad at me.
But going
My
back
wife kicked
to,
me out,
well,
so-
you should have took some time away from both of them while you figure this out. Not go back to Bonnie, because by going back to Bonnie, you brought the whole family into it, because now the whole family knows. Now the kids know, right? And the kids are calling Bonnie and threatening her and back and forth and all this. And then Frances weighed in, right? She started texting Bonnie. And then Bonnie says, when she started texting me, it was not pleasant text messages. She was talking anywhere from my daughter, personal things. She said, so I hit back. You want to get nasty with me? I'll get nasty with you. But some of the shit that Bonnie said was really fucked up. She talked about how Frances had a hysterectomy, and she was saying that she wasn't a real woman. She sent Frances diagrams, of the human body and called her a broken woman, hollow, empty, just awful shit, honestly. So, but Bonnie still was feeling the pressure, okay? Even though she's lashing back, she's acting like she's, not intimidated by Frances. She was. At this point, she was like, fuck Bill, get him out of here. But she said, it was actually the second time that I'd kicked him out. I kind of told him, look, I'm fed up with this. I'm fed up with her. I'm fed up with you. I'm fed up with the kids. I threw out all his clothes. I changed the locks. I changed bank accounts. I did all of the sort. So I would have no contact with him, end quote. Okay? So at this point, Bill decided to give the marriage one more go. That's convenient timing, right, Andy?
Yeah, when you go to your girlfriend to say, I guess I choose you, and she says, fuck off, and then he goes back to his wife and goes, I guess I choose you.
You want to make up now?
Yeah, it was you all along. I was choosing.
But according to Frances's lawyer, Frances and Bill were committed to staying together, okay? And apparently that doesn't just come from Frances's side of the house. That comes from Bill's side too, okay? Now, having had time to cool down, Bonnie decided she wasn't going to give up her man so easy. And on the 8th of October, 2013, Bill and Frances were at a nearby hotel trying to work things out, trying to network a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. They were just trying to work things out for real. And here's a quote from Bonnie. She went looking for a fight, honestly, right here, I think.
Yeah,
She
this
says,
whole thing right here, when they talk about how she's like,
Yeah.
well, I knew I needed to find him, so I just started checking hotels all over the city. It's like,
you was looking for a fight here.
that's not a normal behavior. That's okay, go ahead.
No doubt. Yeah. Here's a quote. She said, I wanted my boyfriend back home, and so I went looking for him. And I said, he has to be over here at the resort off 151. I see her car parked behind the Range Rover. I told the concierge to tell him that Miss Contreras was there. When the concierge was talking to Bill, I could hear Frances in the background yelling and fighting with him and stuff like that. And I guess she then wanted to come downstairs, and he didn't let her come downstairs because then that would have been a scuffle and a fight, end quote.
She says that's so cocky too when
I
she
know.
says it in the interview. She's like, probably he didn't want her to come down because that would have been like a fight or something. And it's like, you're about to get your ass kicked, lady. Like,
But this right here was when Frances began to lose patience with Bill. Frances, now she had had enough, okay? So the following day, there was some type of violent altercation at the Hall home, and Bill was sent right back to his lover. Right back. He got kicked out. He just goes back. So, I mean, I don't know, Andy. I think like Bill would have just bounced back and forth between them forever. Like if they just kept letting him do it.
yeah, until they both finally put their foot down and said, just get the hell out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Bonnie says at this time she kind of started to feel a little sympathy for him because he was seeing a counselor. She says it was like a divorce counselor and that he wasn't happy in his marriage. And he said that he was always going to love his wife, but he wasn't in love with her anymore.
He's been saying that for 3 years, Bonnie.
Apparently. So the day after Bill returned to Bonnie's home, the two of them decided, let's take a trip, right? Let's get out of here. It was the 10th of October, 2013. Bill was riding his blue Harley Davidson, and Bonnie was driving behind him in his Range Rover, or his and Frances's, rather, their Range Rover. And they were headed to Corpus Christi, which was a popular tourist destination on the Gulf Coast of Mexico, if you're unfamiliar. But just minutes into their journey, they pass Frances. Gosh dang it, Frances.
All I could think of is Pee Wee Herman, and then it's just like a small collection of the people who are just like, Frances.
But Frances saw her husband on his motorcycle, very distinct motorcycle at that, and not far behind him was Bonnie in the family's Range Rover.
Yeah.
Would you look at that? Brand new Range Rover. And until this moment, Frances had never actually met Bonnie, never seen her in person. She'd only seen the videos and the pictures and talked to her on the phone. That's it.
Yeah.
So Frances sees Bill go by, and then she sees the supercharged Range Rover go by, and Frances says, she passes me, and she gives me the bird. And I said, that's it. And I said, please, dear God, just let me confront this girl. You know what? If she wants him, she can have him. I had even thought to myself, we're done. That's it. I can't do this. If he wants to be with that skank, go for it. I'm not going to do this. I'm too old to be doing this. And I turned around, and then there we go.
Yeah.
End quote.
Right there, that last
It's like
line.
you said all this. It's like she almost talked herself out of it, allegedly. You know, this is what she says she was thinking. Personally, I doubt it. I doubt any of this shit passed her mind. I think she was like, "Fuck that bitch."
I think she just saw red.
flipped me off in my own car.
Yeah.
Bitch. No, I know exactly what she was thinking. She was seeing red. She
Because,
wasn't
like, when you
thinking nothing.
you say
I'm
all
too old for
that,
this. No, man.
You say everything in that statement, it's all like, well, I'm not going to do this. Well, then I turned around. So it's like, what?
Yeah, it don't add up. So Frances follows Bonnie for a little while, speeding up, slamming on brakes, and Frances, all the while, according to her, is motioning for Bonnie to pull over. She's, getting in her side mirrors and pointing and shit. And there was a point where Bill pulls off to the side. And Bonnie and Frances are still playing brake check and all that shit. And Frances looks over and she sees Bill to the side of her, right? And he actually makes eye contact with her and he's like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. Remember, he was in front of the Range Rover, and then originally he was
he moved
two
over
car
a little
lengths
bit.
in front of that Range Rover. There was a distance,
Yeah.
and he slowed down enough to where they passed him to an extent.
Exactly. So he's in the lane kind of to the right. And all of a sudden, Bonnie slammed on her brake. And then Frances slammed on her brakes, but also has to swerve into the other lane to miss Bonnie. But Bill is coming down that other lane, and Bill slams into the rear passenger side of Francis's car. He is sent airborne from the motorcycle. He's not wearing a helmet or any type of protection.
Nope.
And obviously, he hits the pavement. His bike is thrown as well. Now, in Bonnie's version of the story, it was not until after the impact that she realize that Francis was even driving behind her. This is bullshit.
Yeah, that part right when she says that, you're just like,
Listen,
what?
Just listen to this. I left this quote in here because it's just the audacity of her. You're full of shit. There's no way. She said, I felt somebody hit me from behind, and I thought it was an accident at first. But then when I felt it for the second time, I said, what the hell? And so I looked through the rearview mirror, and I saw it was her. And I got thrown into oncoming traffic. And so I was fighting traffic, and when I was fighting traffic, I managed to merge in front of Bill. And by this time, I'm in front, he's in the back, and Francis is riding behind him. Okay? But at some point in time, Francis kind of goes, this is when Bill slows down and gets over, and then Francis kind of passes Bill. And then that's where the whole brake check, the swerve, boom. Bill hits the rear end, and the accident happens. So Bonnie got to the scene just moments after Francis. Bill is laying injured at the side of the road. Emergency services were on the scene within minutes. Francis allegedly still didn't know that Bill had run into the back of her vehicle at this point. Obviously, she realized he'd been in an accident, but she didn't realize it was her fault. Okay? According to her, Bill's Harley had struck Francis's car, sending him flying into the air and crashing onto the pavement. Again, he had no helmet. Now, in the chaos, Francis maintains to this day that she was oblivious as to what happened at all. And she continued driving the road until she finally decided to turn around to look for Bill.
Yeah,
Okay.
she said like at one point she looked at her, like after like the initial accident, she said she looked in her mirror and saw like a cloud of dust behind her and was
Yeah.
like, oh, it must be like a dust devil because we're out in the country. It's like,
Yeah. She's,
what? Did
the
you run
fuck?
off the road? No, somebody did then.
Yep.
It's like something went off the road.
Well,
But yeah.
when she returned to the scene, there was a detective that grabbed her and basically led her over to the site where Bill was laying. And her sister was already on site at this point. So, like, once the collision happened, both of the women drove away at first. Okay? So, and then some time passes. And during that time, the sister had time to hear about this shit and get there on site before those two women got back. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So here's a quote from Francis. She says, somebody was wearing a suit, a uniform, and they grabbed me. And I remember my sister had Bill. She was holding him in her lap. And I don't know what I assume. I just thought he had an accident. End quote. Now,
She says she's on the phone with her. She's on the phone with either her sister or somebody else at one point, and they call her to be like, "Where are you?" And she's like, "I'm looking for Bill." And they're like, "What do you mean you're looking for Bill? Like, Bill's here.
Yeah,
like
we found him.
Yeah, he's been in an accident. Like, where the fuck are you?" And yeah, then she like turns around and like heads back. So
yeah, it's weird. It's very sus what she was doing at that point. And what happened next is heavily disputed between these two women, okay? Francis claims that Bonnie was yelling for her to be arrested, but Bonnie doesn't remember that. But either way, Francis was soon on her way to the police station anyway, and not the hospital like she wanted to go. She wanted to follow Bill. But the fight between the two women had become a fight for the life of Bill, honestly. And Bill Hall Jr., the 50-year-old trucking magnate, had died moments after the helicopter took off. At the police station in San Antonio, Francis was hearing the news, unfortunately, not with her husband. Bill had died while Francis was allegedly committing a felony. Because she was in a vehicle, it's considered a deadly weapon. And so just the mere act of her following Bonnie and telling her to pull over, that's considered aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. and it's a felony that carries 2 to 20 years in prison in Texas. Mm-hmm. It is. They do not play with that shit in Texas.
Yeah, because and that's even her basically telling them, like, well, this is what I was doing. Like, I followed her, and I was telling her to pull over.
Yeah, and they're like, yep, that's a felony.
They're like,
there you go.
Can't do that. You're
Yeah.
not a cop. Like,
Yep. And even if they didn't convict her of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, the mere fact that she was potentially attempting to do that to someone, and then someone dies, felony murder. Mm-hmm. Just like that.
in Texas, yeah,
Yep.
felony murder.
Yeah. And Bonnie, she thought the charge was great. Here's a quote from her. She says, "The second she turned around, she was already committing a crime." She means like when she turned around to follow her.
Yep.
Okay. She says, when you start to give chase to somebody at that rate of speed, you're going to harm somebody. You're either going to run them off the road, you're going to cause a major accident. Somebody was bound to get hurt when she gave that chase. I don't know if she thought it was going to be me or if she thought it was going to be him or both. I don't know. But to me, I mean, she killed him. She took his life, end
Yeah.
quote.
If Bonnie is acknowledging that this was a chase, then she's contradicting herself, saying she didn't know anything was happening until she got rear-ended.
Facts.
So it's like,
Yep. That's why I say that all that's bullshit.
yeah, it's like if you're acknowledging that she was chasing you and
Yep.
you were like fleeing, then you didn't. Oh, just driving down the. Oh, what's that? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then what was all this? You didn't know it was her till the second bump bullshit.
Yeah, it's like, oh, how did you know she was chasing
Mm-hmm.
you? So,
Yeah. 3 years later, Bonnie's claims were tested in court. A witness for the prosecution, Bonnie took the stand. She said, I basically told them what I saw, and I told them that she started hitting me, and then I said she hit him, and he went flying, and she didn't stop. She still kept chasing me afterwards. Francis's bumper was taken out and shown to the jury, and the front bumper, mind you, which had quite a few marks on it where it had bumped into the other car, the Range Rover, over and over again.
yeah, multiple times.
Yeah. Now, the prosecution with this bumper argues that this woman was in rage, and it was this woman's rage that caused the death of this man. There was photographic evidence of the Escalade on the rear right side where Bill had hit. There's a few documentaries and a few videos of it on YouTube, and even with those, it's kind of hard to understand what actually happened in the crash, especially when you're hearing these contradicting testimonies.
Mm-hmm.
It gets very confusing. Some people, and a lot of way it's claimed, a lot of people think that Frances hit Bill head on and rammed his motor. No, that's not what happened. She pulled over in front of him, and Bill didn't have time to stop. He hits her car, clips it rather, but on a motorcycle at that speed, that's more than enough. Now, in contrast, the defense claimed that Bonnie had slammed on her brakes, causing Frances to swerve, and at that moment, Bill plowed into the back of Frances's car. And on the 8th of September, 2016, the jury returned their verdict to a packed gallery of friends and family. The verdict came down around 7:30 in the evening. They said she was guilty of murder and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Frances obviously was devastated. The whole family was. She was potentially facing 99 years for this.
Or life in prison.
Yeah, or life.
Which is almost just a silly prison sentence. Like 99
Yeah.
years to life. It's like, what?
Yeah, flip a coin. I don't really...
Did I commit this
Yeah.
crime at 1? What
Right.
happened?
What the hell happened? But Frances Hall's lawyers believed that there was still hope. In Texas, a defendant can request that their sentence is determined by a jury and, hopefully win a little mercy from the court.
Yeah, can I get the people who actually don't know the law to tell me
Yeah.
what this crime is being punished by? Can
That'd be better.
I just get a bunch of average people of my peers to tell me what
That'd be cool.
Yeah, what's fair?
Can we do that? The defense argues that this was a case of sudden passion, and that means an experience so profound that you are not capable of clear thinking. An experience that's like out of body. It renders the mind incapable of cool reflection. Now, of course, this wouldn't change the conviction, but it could change how many years she serves, taking the punishment down from 5 to 99 years to 2 to 20.
Yeah.
Much better. Much better. And ultimately, the jury decided to give her only 2 years.
The minimum.
The
thing.
minimum.
The very minimum.
That was a good play by the lawyers.
Very much so.
Jesus. After 2 years in jail, in September of 2018, Frances is released from prison and finally returns home to her family. But she's not quite done with her troubles with the law, Andy. She's not quite, because in 2022, Hall was charged for providing false payroll information over a 7-year period, which caused her to avoid more than $9 million in insurance premium payments while she was co-owner of the company, Bill Hall Jr. Trucking.
Now, I wonder, this is one of those kind of things, it's like, I wonder, but at the time, it's like, was she committing these crimes, or was this one of those things Bill was doing? Was this one of those things that she was like, when you have two business owners who are doing one thing, it's like, if one person's like embezzling, does the other person know about it? But if one person dies, you charge the owner. It's like, you both own this company.
I think
somebody was embezzling.
I think they were both aware of it.
Yeah.
And yeah. But on July 10th, 2024, this year, Frances Hall was sentenced to 10 years, but not in prison. Okay, it's deferred adjudication. Okay, that is a type of probation that allows a defendant to avoid a conviction by staying in the community and meeting certain criteria. Okay,
right? Yeah.
Yeah. But she got 10 years of that after pleading no contest to charges that she was part of a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme while co-owner of Bill Hall Jr.'s Trucking Co. And as part of her no contest plea, she also had to pay $150,000 in restitution. Big deal.
That is a horrible.
She doesn't get punished for anything.
What? You did a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme, and you just plead, my bad.
But then again, I'd be really. Imagine the message you send, though, if you give her 10 years in prison for this and 2 for killing someone.
It would be O.J. Simpson again.
Yeah,
it would be
pretty much.
You get off, but then we're gonna hit you with the maximum sentence for the next shit you do.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's a little silly, just in that world of crime, the white collar crime, the investment and embezzling and insurance. The fact that it's like, oh, so you were
that doesn't really interest me. I just couldn't do this case without putting this in here.
I know, but just the sheer stupidity of being like, you stole millions of dollars and defrauded millions of dollars. What do you have to say for yourself? I'm sorry. All right, give me 150 grand and we'll call it even.
They made that probably in like a month.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Do you take a check? Just literally, it's just the silly things of white collar crime. Sometimes being like, you see the amounts of money that are involved in these things, and then the punishments are nothing to an extent. And then you see some people who get so much punishment for other crimes, and you're like, really? For possession, you get this? Okay, whatever.
Yeah, well, they're
different
poor,
mountain, but
they're poor, Andy.
I know, just like different mountain, but okay.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, she got off. I don't know. I wasn't gonna say she got off easy, but when you listen to the two women tell their sides of the story, you can just very clearly tell it's like neither one of you are being fully honest here. Like, you can't be.
No, yeah, it's impossible.
Like you can even tell when you hear Frances talking after the fact. It's like she has to say things that she's like, oh, I have to say it this way because if I say it in a different way, that might sound incriminating.
Exactly. Also, she spends so much time explaining her thought process to you. And when people are doing that, constantly trying to break down every decision they make and tell you why and justify every single thing, I get suspicious.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, if that's what happened, that's what happened. Why you gotta freaking tell me, oh, well, this and this? Like, I feel like you're trying to prove it to me.
Yeah.
You're not just telling me, you're trying to prove it to me.
When someone has too many, like when something happens and then you ask them, why'd you do that? Or what happened? And then they have they just keep saying like, well, I was thinking this and and also I was, and then this, and remember when we talked about this and then they're pulling things out of their ass. Cause the answer is, oh, you weren't thinking about anything.
Exactly. And when you want natural deodorant, the answer is, oh my God.
You don't have to think about that.
You don't have to think about it at all.
The answer is right there.
That's right. Because they're an innovative all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products, guys. No aluminum, no paraben in this stuff, okay? No. Ain't no speed stick up in here. But guys, there's tons of scents to choose from vanilla, cherry, almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, bergamot, amber, pear, sweet pea, sailor, barbershop, and true crime pine. And a lot more than that, actually. But that's just the ones I have listed on the ad, obviously. You've probably heard this ad like a million times.
Hopefully at this point.
Yeah.
It's burned into my head like an old image on a plasma screen.
Your head. But still, guys, because you're True Crime Guys listeners, this ad is still current, okay? You can use the code word CREEPER for 15% off your order. CREEPER for 15% off your order at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram or ohmygaia.com. That's OHMYGAIA.com.
Get you some of that beard oil too, guys.
Yes.
Winter's coming.
That's right. The cold months are coming. Grow that thing out. Keep your face warm.
Keep your face warm, but
That's
keep it nice and moisturized. Got to keep that dry skin from forming
Keep
in
it
there.
shiny. Keep it fresh.
Exactly.
That's
Give me some
right.
more of that.
All right, guys. And don't forget, check out all of our fresh content on Patreon. Patreon.com/TrueCrimeGuys, where for just $2 a month until October 1st, we're going up $1 whole on our prices. $1 whole. Okay? Please don't protest us.
Listen, inflation hits everybody.
And it hits us just a tiny bit, apparently.
Yeah.
But guys, patreon.com/truecrimeguys, where for soon, just $3 a month, you can get access to hundreds and hundreds of audio files and exclusive episodes that you can only hear on Patreon, like Patreon exclusives, for instance. Like we have one coming up. We really need to do one. How many episodes have, wow. We're just throwing everything out here on free platform these days, Andy.
Mm-hmm. And we got some headlines coming up for our headlines.
We're doing headlines next week. I'm calling it right now. Because I'm pretty sure we're already behind.
There have been some headlines coming out that I've just been.
All right. Talk about. Headlines and shenanigans next week, and we'll have a brand new Patreon exclusive next week as well. Again, that's patreon.com/truecrimeguys. You can check the link right below the description, as well as links to Oh My Gaia and our other shows like Strange and Unexplained and Cryptic Soup with Dina and Kylie. Please check out those podcasts wherever you're listening to this one. Why not? Same. They're probably on this platform. Boom. Check it out.
Recommend it to you right now.
There you go. Give us a follow on social media at True Crime Guys. Check out our music on Spotify, and I think that's about it, Andy.
I think that's about it, guys.
Yeah,
Get
I'm
you some of that
gassed.
Oh My Gaia. Let's get out of here.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week with headlines and shenanigans, and we'll see you with a regular rep on Patreon. Till then, keep on creeping. Bye.